Dr. Sharron Francis is a research professor in the Department of Molecular Physiology and Biophysics at Vanderbilt University in the School of Medicine at Vanderbilt. She teaches and mentors doctoral and postdoctoral trainees, which is important work in and of itself, but that isn't the work for which she is best known. After graduating from WKU in 1965 and being named Most Outstanding Biology Student, Dr. Francis earned her PhD in medical physiology from Vanderbilt University. She went on to complete her postdoctoral work at Washington University in St. Louis and the National Heart and Lung Institute in Bethesda, Maryland. Her research has focused on mechanics that cells use to regulate their functions and the role that those cells play in causing hypertension, asthma, diabetes, and male impotence. In the late 1970s, she partnered with Professor Jackie D. Corbin on research that led to the purification and characterization of a protein that modulates blood pressure. Though you might not know Dr. Francis by name, if you have watched television in recent years at all, you are familiar with one of the results of her research. Her work led to the creation of Viagra and subsequently Levitra, Cialis, and other similar aids. Her research revolutionized not only men's health, but also the content of television commercials for years to come. Dr. Francis has published and edited extensively on her research. She received a Career Development Award from the National Institutes of Health and financial support from the NIH, the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, and the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. It is my pleasure to induct Dr. Sharron Francis into the Hall of Distinguished Alumni. If you will enjoy the video, and Sharron, we'll see you in just a moment.
Some work for it, some aspire to it, and some are just born to it. For Sharron Francis, her love affair with science is as intricate as the molecular subjects she studies.
I found it just endlessly fascinating. It was always for me. If I had 3 lives to live over, I would live them as a scientist.
Growing up in rural Bowling Green, Francis was a popular student with a gift for science. She credits her high school biology teacher for fueling that passion. Francis received a biology degree from Western Kentucky University in 1965, where she was named Most Outstanding Biology Student. All this while working 3 jobs and living at home to help defray costs.
At Western is where I got my academic beginnings that really launched my whole career. And I got the foundation of my scientific training there, which afforded me quite well when I came to Vanderbilt to graduate school. I never felt that I was underprepared compared to students who came from, many, many schools. So Western gave me my beginning, my scientific beginning.
Oh yeah, the one thing that stands out of my mind is going home from school one evening and we shared a bedroom. And I walked in and there was an eel being dissected on the table. And the room, reeked of formaldehyde. And that was common. She would get, when she went to Western, she would get extra things they were dissecting. She would get the extras and bring them home and have a little mini lab set up in the bedroom. So I got to see the insides of lots of animals.
With encouragement from her WKU biology professors, Francis went on to earn her PhD in medical physiology from Vanderbilt University and completed postdoctoral work at Washington University in St. Louis and the National Heart and Lung Institute in Bethesda, Maryland. She joined the faculty of Vanderbilt University School of Medicine in 1975, where she continues to work as a research professor in the Department of Molecular Physiology and Biophysics. She also teaches and mentors doctoral and postdoctoral trainees.
One of the things that comes to mind when I think of her as a scientist is encyclopedia. It just seems like all the paper she reads sticks in her brain so quickly and so easily, and I'm just astounded how, when I was a graduate student in her lab, we would talk about my experiments, and she would say, well, in so-and-so's paper, they showed this, and in so-and-so's paper done in 1989, they showed this, and sure enough, if I looked back at the paper, there it was, just as she said. So she's an amazing scientist, and she's an amazing teacher.
While at Vanderbilt, Dr. Francis and her colleague, Dr. Jackie Corbin, focused their research on mechanisms cells use to regulate their functions, specifically cyclic GMP, which regulates contractions in muscles surrounding blood vessels. They purified and characterized a protein named PDE5.
So we set out not only to continue working on the kinase, which we already knew more about, but I set out really that was my emphasis, to figure out what this other protein did. Was it a phosphodiesterase? Was it something else? And we worked very hard. In 1980, we published a paper identifying that as a phosphodiesterase. We gave it a name. It was a different name. The names of these things change sometimes throughout history. But that was the protein that ultimately came to be known as phosphodiesterase 5, or PDE5, and that is the target of Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra.
As I said before, she's a pure scientist, excited about her results, hope that we can explain some natural things, maybe even these results will lead to some medications. And in fact, it did in this case.
What you always have is that you are trying to solve a puzzle. You're posing questions. You're trying to pose better questions. You're trying to figure out how to do this better. Why is it not working the way we thought it was going to work? I would say almost invariably we are surprised. You conduct an experiment or a series of experiments, and where you thought you were going ends up being close, but it's over here, and because we're just not as clever as nature, but we work on it. It's a challenge. It's fun.
2008 Hall of Distinguished Alumni inductee, Dr. Sharron Francis.
Wow, I want to thank Barbara Deeb and her team for doing such a lovely video. I want to thank the Western Kentucky University community for bestowing this great honor on me. I am just very grateful and touched. And I also want to thank the HODA committee for favorably considering my nomination, and for my longtime friend, Dr. Jinx Britt, for advancing my nomination. I want to thank all of you for coming out to celebrate with us today, and particularly my friends, close friends and family. I have part of my Vanderbilt family here, Dr. Jackie Corbin, who you saw there, who's been my close professional collaborator for now 30 years. We've had a lot of fun, solved a lot of problems. Two of my former students and a postdoctoral fellow in our lab. Then I have the joy of having some of my friends from elementary school, high school, and college years. We all grew up here in Warren County together, and they have joined me, as well as my family, my sister and her son and friend, and my brother and his wife and daughter. And then there's my immediate family, my children, Heather and Jason and their spouses have joined us today. And my husband, last but not least, who's been with me for over 43 years, and he has seen it all. He also shares a fascination of the natural world with me. We're sort of well-mated geeks. He's a physician, and so we appreciate and enjoy talking about lots of fun things in the natural world. I would just like to say, as I mentioned in the video, that Western Kentucky University provided me with a very critical part of my life. They gave me a strong basis in science, my foundation, which was the springboard for me to move on to graduate studies. But educators and educational institutions have such an impact on our life, and I would just point out that shortly, a few semesters after I enrolled at Western, I had a professor in biology who began to query me on what I was going to do with my life, and had I thought of going to graduate school, and no, I hadn't, and well, why not? And I said I had no resources, and he said, oh, well, I can identify some programs for you to apply to. He did, and the rest is history. I successfully enrolled in a medical physiology program at Vanderbilt. But it was because of the interest and the initiative of that faculty member, Dr. Bill Norris. He changed my life. Western changed my life, and he changed my life because he was an engaged educator. I went to Vanderbilt. I met another group of academicians who were not only transferring knowledge, but they were devoting their lives to dissecting what was going on in cells and trying to understand disease processes. And this was the intellectual spark that really set me on fire. And I've pursued this for the rest of my life joyfully, and it has been very rewarding. I believe that education is one of the main pillars of a civilized society. And it's institutions like Western Kentucky University and the faculty that it fosters, the administrative people who push the development of programs and new opportunities that enrich us all in every walk of our life, whether it's medical advances, technological advances, better appreciation of our culture. We're all blessed by the myriad things that the universities bring to us. And so, again, I thank you very much. I am honored beyond measure. Thank you.
Jimmy Gibson began working for Houchins Industries as an accounting manager in